Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7. We're already up to episode 7,
Getting
Jeremy.
there. Had to use two hands to get
That's
that
right.
done. Yeah.
Leading the MOMA with Dr. Pickard here, Jeremy Pickard, president at Southwest Tech. How you doing, Jeremy?
Really good. It's a great day. Faculty were back today, and so we had our in-service going on, and it's just a lot of excitement in the halls. Next week, we're going to welcome students. It's a good time of year for us.
You can really tell the difference, can't you, from last week to this week?
Yeah, the energy's great. I love it.
Absolutely. We have a special guest today, all the way from across the road.
That's right.
Jamie Nutter, agency administrator. Is that correct, Jamie?
That is correct.
At CESA 3. How was the traffic on the way over, Jamie?
I got right across on Bronson with no troubles.
That's great. So what we like to do before we get into the questions, we want to talk about youth apprenticeships and what CESA 3 does, what you do, and all the great things you do in the district. But first, we have a couple fun questions for you, Jamie, to get the conversation started. If they made a movie about your life, who would play you in the movie?
Oh, boy. Let's think about that. Trying to think of somebody who behaves themselves really, really well. Who would play me? I don't know. Maybe I'd probably date myself, but I'd have to say like Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, okay, sure.
There you go.
Early Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah. Probably early me, too.
That's funny.
That's a good call. Jeremy, what about you think?
Well, my wife tells me I look like a young George Clooney.
Oh, sure,
So
sure.
That's made up, too, by the way. I don't know. You always think of like the actors you love the most. I enjoy Tom Hanks. I just always like how he's come across and presented. I don't know if he would play me or not. I don't know if he's funny enough. So could be Homer Simpson, could be Tom Hanks, it could be Jim Carrey. There's a variety of different people in there.
That's a good group.
Got to have a lot of personality, I think. Maybe the combination of all three of them.
That's right. So, Jamie, what's one thing that's on your bucket list?
Well, probably traveling to different parts of the world. I just really got into traveling within the last 10 years. 15 years ago, if you would ask me, my whole life was to live. My goal was to live in a town without a traffic light and never to leave the country because I like routine. And then through some opportunities with following my kids, I got talked into going over to watch my son compete overseas. I did that a second time, and then the third time we did it, I told my wife, I said, "Hey, you got to come with us." And after that, we were just enjoying seeing the different cultures and that piece. So I would say, we want to see maybe the Aegean Sea, maybe Crete Island, some countries in Asia. So it'll be when one bucket gets dumped, there'll be more buckets.
Right.
That's great. Yeah, you caught the bug, didn't you? Once you catch it, look out.
Yeah, you're hooked now.
That's
Jamie.
right.
What about you, Jeremy? Something on your bucket list?
Yeah, I've always had a dream of getting my pilot's license. I don't know why. I just think it'd be fun to fly a small aircraft and buzz around a little bit. I don't think I'm going to be a crop duster or anything, but I always had an interest in doing that. Had a good colleague of mine that used to take me up. He was the ag instructor at the college I used to work for, and he'd take me and my kids up flying, and I just always thought this is just relaxing and enjoyable, and so I think if I had one, that would be it. Traveling also, love that. New Zealand's probably top of my list right now of a place that I'd like to get to. So those couple of things would be on my bucket list.
That's one that would be on my bucket list too. Is flying. The flying part sounds awesome. It's the landing that gets me.
Yeah.
Is a private plane for the college in the budget this year, Jeremy, or no?
Well, we can go talk to Caleb and find out.
Right.
I could probably speculate. No.
Probably not. Not this year.
Not this year.
So, Jamie, you've been around higher education a long time in Southwest Tech, obviously. What do you think? What's one word that describes Southwest Tech?
I think caring. Caring and pride. You said one word, but caring. I think there's an element of pride in caring. So, but I would say that it's a family, and having relatives who were at the very beginning of this. That was even as a young person, knowing that my relatives started programs here. The care that they had for and the pride for this organization and educational institution has just been a part of everything here.
Yeah, it's amazing how far the college has come, right, in the last 50 years or so, Jamie. And yeah, caring, I think that's a great word. What about you, Jeremy? What do you think?
Yeah, the more I'm around, they're courageous. Like, they want to try to do hard things. They want to do hard things. They want to measure themselves against other technical and community colleges across the nation, and they want to be great. And so I think that's the word I would use for them.
Yeah, the one word that I think of is welcoming, right? I mean, we're open to everyone. Come in, take a class or two, take a program, and then improve your life and improve your family's life. I think that's welcoming, I think, is a good word that I come up with. So, Jamie, you're an agency administrator at CESA 3, and for people that don't know you, what is CESA 3 and what do you do over there?
Yeah, so Cooperative Education Service Agency, there's 12 of us in the state, and how they come up with the number is it's pretty creative. They start in Milwaukee, and that's one, and they go across the state. In the middle of the state is 2. We're over here on 3. Then we go up to 4, 5, 6. I keep going. So, excuse me, there's 12 of us. And so we were created in 1965, mainly prior to the 1975 Education Handicap Act. There were more communities who just didn't think it was right that students with disabilities had to go live with families during the week to get their education because there was more resources. And so communities wanted to be able to serve people with disabilities in their community. You know, they would see people in the business, they'd see people in at church, and then disappear during the week. And so as that changed in school districts, that moral imperative that schools wanted to serve, they needed resources. And so there started to be more conversation across the state and Wisconsin wasn't the only one that had AEAs as our generic name. More and more educational institutions wanted those resources. But the number of students obviously would be few, so just hiring one person just wasn't very economical. Mm-hmm. So they needed a way to share services. So CESAs were created legislatively in 1965 so we could be tax exempt with a specific purpose. And so that's what we started as, and then eventually it led to more buying power. For example, there's 31 school districts in CESA 3. We cover 4,000 square miles, and they pretty much all do a lot of the same things. And so rather than purchasing individually, we can create some buying power that makes them a little bit more powerful. And then the third component that's evolved is when you think about the Department of Public Instruction, which provides oversight to our public schools. They also provide a level of accountability. And when we think about the drivers that for school districts to be successful, accountability is one piece, but so is feedback and support and culture. And so CESA 3 helps with those other aspects so that they can meet their accountability. So if we summarize, we provide services for hard-to-find positions, we provide professional development, and we help schools to be compliant with some buying power.
Sure. And Jeremy, looking at what CESA 3 does to get the high school students ready to come to college or go into a career, I mean, how big of an impact does that have on us when we get those students in here the first time? Yeah,
we know that if you fill out a FAFSA, you take a college tour, and then you get some dual credit while you're in high school. Those 3 indicators are great metrics to use to determine if somebody's going to go on and persist into higher education. And so anything that we can do collaboratively and in partnership with one another to make sure that those things are happening, we're all about that. Also, too, the number of dual credits that students are getting now, we just want to make sure that they're heading in the right direction and they're on the right path. We don't want that time and resources and energy to be used for maybe something that they're not going to go into eventually. So they're assisting us in helping them and guide them into a correct path. And I think the metrics we just used in today was 83 or 4% of the students who were in dual credit were taking a class that was on their designated path. Obviously, we want that to be 100% because those are resources that we want to make sure we're using wisely. And so that partnership, we're all in the business of doing the same thing. It's educating students, and how do we collaborate with one another for the purpose of making the student have a better experience as they persist through K-12 into higher education and beyond.
Speaking of educating students, one of the major programs, I guess. I don't know if it's a major program, Jamie, but youth apprenticeship. It's a big thing in high schools now. What is youth apprenticeship, and how does that differ from dual credit or any of the other options that high school students have?
Academic and career planning has become part of its PI 26. It's a law that all of our high schools have to follow, making sure that our students have academic and career plans so that when they're taking courses in high school, it's a leading to something other than checking a box to graduate. So over the past 2 decades, we've really focused on helping students to understand where they're going after high school so that everything's toward a choice. So as we think about all of those opportunities for our students, one program in particular is youth apprenticeships that allows for a workplace-based experience. And so the youth apprenticeship program is a state-approved program, and it requires and they provide incentive to the school districts that provide those opportunities. So if a student completes a youth apprenticeship, that school district can receive up to $1,000 per student that complete this. And so it's a win-win. So in order to complete a youth apprenticeship program, a student has to complete 4 components of that. One is they have to work a minimum of 450 hours in that apprenticeship, in an approved youth apprenticeship sector. Secondly, they have to get paid minimum wage. They have to have related instruction, and then they have to have an education training agreement, which allows us to evaluate them, our personnel to evaluate them. And so where the partnership and where we developed a common language with Southwest Technical College with a lot of our youth apprenticeship programs is on the related instruction piece. And so we're very unique with our apprenticeship that we provide up to 6 credits per year paid at no expense to the district, no expense to the student, and no expense to the technical college. So we apply those grant funds directly for up to 6 credits. And so a student can graduate from high school with 12 credits that were paid for by that grant. In addition, school districts provide programs called the Early College Credit Program, which most of our schools are capped at about 18 credits. So if you pair that with the youth apprenticeship program, students can graduate with 30 credits, which if you can imagine what Dr. Pickard just talked about with what his formula for success is, that would play a big part in that formula for success.
And it's all about giving those younger students more options, right, Jeremy? You want to have. When I was young, I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? You want to give them an opportunity to try things and see what they like, and then maybe go on to Southwest Tech.
Yeah, and you're right. You can get 30 credits, but I think the next, or what we want to evolve that into, is making sure that they're the right credits for what it is that a student wants to do, because it's about a year's worth of education. 30 credits would be making that complete, as long as the credits that you're receiving are leading towards the credential that you have a desire to earn. If you're taking a few credits in this topic and a few credits in this topic and a few credits in this topic, you might not be as close as you think you'd like to be when you get done. And I think that's the importance of the work, is how do we go in and ensure that those degree plans, the student success plans, are functioning and working in a way so when they come out, those 30 credits are actually ahead of them in the right direction and get them a lot closer to graduation. Yeah, to your point, to have a year done, I mean, that is amazing, and what a head start that our students have in our area for that.
Yeah, another great opportunity. Let's talk a little bit about dual enrollment and dual credit. Just kind of looking at it the last few years, I don't know, 10, 20 years, it seems like dual credit, dual enrollment has really exploded with students in the area and the district earning those college credits. Have you seen that, Jamie, where the dual credit and dual enrollment is really a big issue now?
Well, so youth apprenticeship, so dual credit's a big part of youth apprenticeship. So if you think about from 2017 across all of the CESA 3, and we could say Southwest Tech region because 30 of the 31 school districts in CESA 3 are in Southwest Tech. We went from 116 youth apprenticeships to over 700 that we're anticipating this year. So imagine, do the math with the credits on that. And so that in itself, I think part of our academic and career planning is doing its job. Our students are very particular. They're getting more savvy about what they take in high school. They expect a return on that investment. It used to be that we just had the joy of knowledge, but now with when we think about the investment of time is really key for a lot of our students. They want to save time and money after high school. So dual credits is a way to do that. I think where the win is coming, and Dr. Pickard and I we've been able to talk real briefly, but one of the things that we both agree with is that dual credits is an investment in our students, because the biggest threat right now to Southwest Wisconsin is our population, is the brain drain. When we look at statistics, we're losing 10,000 each year to Iowa. We're losing 10,000 students to Illinois, 10,000 students to Minnesota, and 10,000 students to Illinois. Overall, we're losing a lot of students every year to other states. And so, if you think about that investment of dual credits, whether it's our community investing on those 18 credits or the state investing on those 12 credits through youth apprenticeship, to get that return on investment, we would like our students to come back, start families. We know that students who learn, gain education, gain those experiences, they find somebody who has believed in them. You just don't get a youth apprenticeship because you want to. You have to apply for the job. You have to have somebody that's willing to take you on as an employee. And then they're going to teach you with that education training agreement, they're going to teach you skills. And there's not only the technical aspects, but there's the team building, there's what's it mean to be a good employee. And so if we've spent all of that time and energy training young people, and we had and that's why youth apprenticeship is great, because those employers are training them from the ground up. They don't have to reteach them or unteach bad habits. They've had the opportunity to influence that. Why wouldn't we want to keep all of those students in our area? And then we think about the K-12s with declining enrollment. We think about enrollment across the board in Wisconsin. Well, we need people because. And then as we think about services and economic development, we need more people at the party to help pay the band, really, metaphorically speaking. And so, so our hope is that not only do our communities see that investment, but our youth understand, hey, people who believed in me invested in me, and this is a great place. Someday I want to carry that forward. I want to lead in my community. I want to be on a council. I want to volunteer for a service. I want that overall experience. And I think with, whether it's youth apprenticeship and getting out here and seeing the community with a dual credit, all of that leads to that whole quality of life is what we're after when they're done. Not just about how much their salary is going to be, but that overall experience.
Sure, and it takes a village, right, Jeremy? CESA 3, Southwest Tech, business and industry needs employees. They need skilled employees. Everybody has to be working in the same direction, right?
Yeah, I think that's the issue, and something that I think we don't talk enough about is just the resources that are available to do dual credit. That seems to be a pinch point amongst the partners. We're all trying to do the same work. We all have the same interests in mind, but a dollar is only worth a dollar, right? And so when you're constrained and when you're a little bit limited on some of the resources, it doesn't provide the opportunities that you might have or might be able to do, or as many of them as you would like to create. Wisconsin, we know for dual credit, and the funding of that is just one of the lowest in the nation. They don't fund it at the level that many other states do. And we know by looking at it, you wonder why Wisconsin kind of ranks where Wisconsin does nationally. We think a lot of that has to do with funding. So instead of competing with one another for some of those resources, I don't like to compete with my K-12 partners for resources. We need to figure out different ways to try to increase the amount of resources that are being committed to that. So it does make the experience a lot more enjoyable for students, and they do have more opportunities afforded to them.
Sure, and speaking of partnerships, obviously we already talked about youth apprenticeships, but can both of you kind of talk to the partnership between CESA 3 and Southwest Tech? How do we work together, Jamie? What types of things do we do together to benefit students in our district?
Well, I think one of the things is brainstorming some of those career opportunities. When we think about our higher education partners, they're right there in the forefront. So college, post-secondary training is one step beyond K-12, which is kind of where our lane ends, right? Where we want to help promote graduation so that students have choices after high school. And then after that handoff, Southwest Tech has more accountability to those employers. Are they producing those employees that they need in order to be leaders, to be competitive, to be courageous, as you stated. And so along the way, there's benchmarks that we have to hit in order to be on pace. And I think we've done a really good job of collaborating, whether we write grants together, because funding's always an issue. And we've written some pretty significant grants where we have a role and Southwest Tech has a role. I think the other piece that has been helpful is I've seen from an outside perspective, being one part of the team, is there's been more openness at the University of Wisconsin at Platteville for programs where students start at Southwest Tech, and then depending on where the job is, they can continue that education after starting here. So all of that partnership and understanding those academic and career plans and looking for creative ways to braid our funding so that 2 + 2 can equal 8, right? I mean, that's what happens because you get the people and the ideas behind it. It's just not about the money. It's about how can we be creative with those resources. And there's just a lot of people who have a lot of energy between our two institutions, and that continues. And Dr. Pickard, the first couple weeks on the job, I was honored. I was one of the first people we visited with, and we got that kickoff meeting done. So we're looking forward to more partnerships.
That's right.
Yeah, how do you see the future, I guess, with CESA 3 and what we can build on, Jeremy?
Yeah, again, I think we're in it for the same reasons. So we may differ on how to go about doing something, but at the end of the day, we believe in what it is that we're doing. We're trying to educate the youth of our area, which provide them the opportunity so they can enter the workforce and contribute back to Southwest Wisconsin. He articulated that very well. We're all in that together. How we go about doing that, I think we just need to find where our pockets of expertise are and contribute in that way. Dual credit is always going to be an area where we partner with one another. They understand K-12 and high schools and the superintendents, the school administrators in our area, and then we're the ones who are responsible to offer the dual credit. So that's always going to be an area where we partner. And then just trying to find different ways to do that, whether that's through career exploration, whether that's through work-based learning opportunities, whether it's through the apprentice side of the house. We have to be strong partners because we're not going to do it alone. I don't believe they want to do it alone. And together we have a partnership that just is doing really, really great work. We can share resources that way, whether that be people or actual dollars, and that's helpful to both partners as well too. So we can be more efficient with our funds and our resources.
I'm always interested, Jamie. We've talked about this before, I believe, Jeremy. At what point do you think we should start talking to K through 12 students about their next step, about college, higher education, about careers? Does it start in high school, or should we start younger in middle school? And I guess what advice would you have to parents about talking to their students about the next step?
Well, I think one of the programs or supports is probably a better word that we've heard a lot more from our Southwest Tech partners and people in charge of those are the success plans. So we still live in an area that has a lot of poverty. Mm-hmm. We live in an area where we know that for a lot of students, education is going to be the great equalizer that's going to allow them to leverage an education beyond high school to be able to achieve their goals and dreams and contribute in ways that are productive. And so as we start thinking about that, I believe with the success plans, I believe with just being more awareness that Southwest Tech is ready for them. So to answer that question, I think for sure by their junior year. I think that's the very latest, because if students are more savvy about what they're taking in their junior and senior year, rather than load up on study halls as a senior and look for that last easy path, it's an opportunity to get a head start, because that could be the difference makers. But we certainly have students who know at a young age now, because of tools like Zello, that where students explore different careers at a younger age. With technology, they have access to understanding what's a day in the life. They can watch a YouTube video about whatever, and they're very savvy with that. So I think helping them at that middle school level, and that's what our academic and career plans do. They start at middle school from the guidance perspective. When we first started guidance in K-12, that's what they did. They guided students toward that. Now, obviously, they've added a lot onto that over the years, but that's still a major role. And so, helping, I believe strongly, and there's a lot of research and science behind this, that the idea of learning spirals, right? And when we talk about spiral, I might not understand it, but a seed's been planted the first time. When I hear it again, I understand it a little bit better. When I get different context of how that information is applied, now I really have a more in-depth understanding. So as we start thinking about that in middle school, now I've had an opportunity, maybe by the time I'm 15 or 16, to work with something that I either say I love this or that's not what I want to do. So I'm going to figure out that I want to use my body more than my brain, or my brain more than my body, or something that allows me to do both, or something I'm really interested in. And so weaving all of that in through that high school experience is really important. But we've learned that the one thing that we've learned is that students with the cost of post-secondary, we can't wait till students are 27 years old and say, yeah, I just spent $80,000 on an education and I don't want anything to do with that. We know that the work up front is going to pay dividends down the road. So it starts in middle school, it spirals, and I believe our K-12s are doing a really good job with that.
Sure, and it does seem like times have changed quite a bit, Jeremy. I remember back in my day, right? You got your high school education and you were kind of on your own to find a place in higher ed or go into a career. You really didn't have the resources that we have now, and that's intentional, right? We want to help younger students.
Yeah, so we're entering an era where the parents of the high school students were some of our first dual enrollment students. And so what you're going to see is they have somewhat of an understanding of what that meant to them and how beneficial it was. They probably did it just like you're talking about, a whole lot less, but at least they understood, man, if I could have gotten a little bit more of that, the opportunities that would have been afforded to me would be great. So you're having a group of parents that are starting to come through now that have an understanding of what that means and what that can do for them. Jamie's right. Senior year, we want to maximize that. We don't want students taking an early release or a late start and just going home and playing video games. What if you had a chance to jumpstart your education, do that in an economical way, maybe even at no cost to you and your family? That just gets you down the road so much further. And if you can get a year done, so we always think about the cost savings that could be for a year of college, but what we're also not factoring in is the amount of earnings you could have in that year as well. So yeah, it's the cost savings of a year of college, but it's also the earning potential that you have of being out in the workforce a year earlier. And so when you add those two things together, it's quite significant. So yeah, your junior and senior year, that's really where a lot of our dual credit is coming from, but you have to be able to have done what you needed to do as in your sophomore year and in your freshman year in order to get yourself ready to participate in your senior year. So it really does kind of start educating folks in middle school, but really by that freshman year, you want to start to have an idea or a thoughtful plan through your high school courses and how you're going to integrate the dual credit in order to give yourself an opportunity to do a little bit more when you're in your junior and senior year. And
that kind of circles back to the student success plans, right? When the students get into high school, we're right there and we can kind of give them the path forward and what you're working on too, Jamie. That's great. Before we wrap up today, there is one more thing I wanted to talk about. At In-Service today, we had a session and some training on AI. You and I talked about AI kind of before we started the podcast, and it just seems like it's just moving at light speed. What what we can do with AI. And I guess in the K-12 level, Jamie, what do you see as far as the future of AI, some of the policies? Has it changed education already in that level?
Yeah, so we see that adoption of innovation or that distribution of innovation, depending on how quickly schools adopt it, and technology has changed so quickly. If you ignore it, it's too late. And I think AI has been a game changer as compared to, if we think about technology and how it's changed, and those people always want to cite, it's the biggest change since calculator, right? So and we think about that impact. But what we saw is we saw a lot of our school districts just not quite sure about it because of the weighing of, is this a replacement of knowledge versus being able to really tell and show what we can do as students. And so that change has really happened, and so schools try to monitor that through their firewalls and just, hey, let's leave it out of here until we know what's going on. So now they've learned, they've started to invest in professional development and knowledge, and so now we're seeing changes. We're seeing changes very quickly, and our schools are starting to develop systems. Just real simple: red, yellow, green. Red means I don't use AI. Yellow means I use some of it. And green not only means that I use it, but then I determine whether or not it's accurate, right? Because we know that AI can't be accurate. But I think what we're really starting to notice, and what the feedback that we're getting, and we learned this from the pandemic when students were on devices all the time, that we saw for our youngest students, we saw an increase in more needs to improve fine motor and gross motor skills, because we weren't just, students at a young age weren't getting those developmental opportunities for play and strength. So we know that about late elementary, middle school on up is really where we need to be providing those prerequisite skills. So when they get to, I don't know what industry they're on past 4.0, if it's 5.0, or what the technical term is, right? So that when they get to that knowledge beyond there, that students have working knowledge. And we're also seeing that. So the other thing that we're trying to get past, students are ahead of the teachers in general right now, and so I think most of our schools have decided that the student experience isn't going to be based on the knowledge of the teachers. Because if I have two teachers in the same grade, one embraces AI and one doesn't, my knowledge of AI is dependent on whether or not a teacher embraces that. And so we're starting to see our schools now come up with policies, come up with systems, help support our teachers and provide those trainings. And that's think about a snowball that starts rolling slowly, and now all of a sudden that's really, really picked up. And at the same time, right, there's standards that students need to know and be able to do before they graduate. So just using AI to learn AI is not going to get it done. It's that implementation, that infusion of AI, and we're starting to see that. We have schools that have developed policies and practices and expectations, and they have tools that monitor how it's being used, whether it's the teacher's use or the student's use. So that entire system just took a little bit to get the structure in place in order to use it, and I think we're getting to that place, and our students are going to have a better idea. And finally, we had our annual meeting, and we brought in a speaker to address school boards because it's on the minds of our school board members. And what that speaker said was, with social media, we just said, what, that's our parents' job, is to teach all of that. And what we learned is that when we just ignored it, because we have a lot of students we serve, right, in a day, the majority of people come through our schools. When we ignore social media, it's hard to argue that social media can be used in ways that we had hoped it wouldn't be used. And that was because we let students just figure it out on their own. well, we don't want the same thing to happen with AI. So there's a whole ethical piece now that is coming in, and we have to figure that out. And we need to figure that out as a society. To answer your question, we are seeing AI as a big part of pre-K through 12 right now.
Sure, and I like your snowball analogy, and it seems, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like we're at the point now where like everybody's like, okay, AI's here, it's not going away, so we need to set up some guardrails, we need to set up some policies, procedures. Do you see it that way, Jeremy? And what's your philosophy, I guess, on AI in higher ed?
Yeah, in higher ed, it might be a little bit different. I think what we're doing is we're preparing a workforce. And so we need to have a very thoughtful and thorough understanding of how that discipline or that profession is using AI at this point in time. It would be a disservice to our graduates if we sent them out into a world that is expected to use it and they haven't had any exposure to it. And again, what I'm talking about is not just open the doors wide open, but a thoughtful exposure to how you might want to be using it. Because if you're working in certain areas, it's very restrictive. If you're an engineer and you're trying to create something, you want to lock those plans down and those things down as your R&D. You don't want that out there on the open web. However, if you're a software developer or graphic arts, those folks are maybe using it a little bit more heavily and readily. And so we're leaning on our advisory boards right now to come in and kind of share with us how you're seeing it, where are you using it, what are some things that we need to do. And then we're trying to infuse and integrate that into the curriculum that they have. So when we do have a graduate come out, now remember, if you start today and you're 2 years from that, a lot is going to change over that course of time. We want to make sure that we're adjusting and morphing with the times to have a very thoughtful user of AI. And then we want to look at it from our own institutional standpoint. How can we use it to be more efficient at what we do? I've always said, with AI, it's kind of dumb in, dumb out, but smart in, it typically is smarter out. And so we need to be thoughtful on what we're putting into it and then making sure we're vetting the result that's coming out the backside of that. And so maybe those medial tasks or those things that we can figure out how to use or to make our jobs a little bit more efficient, I think we owe it to ourselves to be able to do that because resources are getting a little bit tighter and we all have a lot to do. Oftentimes in our worlds, we're not lean organizations. Sometimes we're malnourished because we just don't have enough people to go around. And if we can figure out ways to leverage that to do some of the tasks that take up a lot of time but are done over and over and over again, I think we need to explore that. So we're very interested in it. We're always exploring it, and we're trying to figure out how to leverage it both as an organization and then making sure our graduates fully understand it as well too.
Yeah, there's no doubt that AI is gonna take quite a bit of our time here in the next few years. It's going to be interesting to see which way it goes, and hopefully we'll have a lot of great outcomes with AI. But wrapping up here, I just want to thank you, Jamie. I know you're busy. Jeremy, you're busy. This was a great conversation. Yeah. We touched on a lot of great topics, and I learned a lot for sure, and I'm sure people will learn a lot too.
Well, this is our second meeting now, Jamie. We're going to have to do a third. Thanks for coming by today and sharing your time with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. This was episode 7, and I believe after that is episode 8, if my math is correct.
Yep,
right?
You got it.
So join us in a couple weeks. Again, we're on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.